Sometimes you say things that you have to go back and retract. I think this is one of those times. I said a couple of podcasts back that I had a hot take that I wasn't really enjoying the Real Housewives of Orange County. I stand corrected, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm not afraid to tell you when I'm wrong. It's good. It's really good. And I'm not quite certain where my take came from before, except for maybe jet lag and exhaustion. But again, I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. So let's jump in and recap and bring us up to speed on Orange County. Episode 1, and we start off with Nannygate right off the bat. Emily's triggered because of all of the events of last season, and she seems to just have a general distrust for bloggers and podcasters. And I take exception to that for obvious reasons. But, as far as I'm concerned, if I don't give a shit and I don't want to watch this show, then what are we all doing here? So, I don't know. I think that some of these girls are taking it too far, but there is something to be said about the infiltration of blogs and podcasts into the Bravo/Peacock/Housewives zeitgeist. I don't know how I feel about it. Now, if you guys want to feature something I said, I might change my mind, but I'm just kidding. I really don't know. I mean, back in the day, there were comments about, well, you said this on your blog. Remember when the housewives used to have to blog after every episode? It was before Instagram and, TikTok and all the things. And they used to have to do a blog after every episode. And that used to stir up all this shit. And now it's this. But my opinion is it's always going to be something. So you might just embrace the fact that people are saying your name, because once they forget your name, what do you have? Well, Katie and Shannon have forged a friendship. Did you guys see that? Not sure how I feel about that. But I think that it's one of those situations where, well, if you don't like her, then I can like you. And so let's try to see if we can find common ground disliking this other person. I think that might be what this is all about, at least in the beginning. It may have become an organic friendship later on, but I don't know. This is episode 1, you guys. I think there's a lot to come, right? So let's move on. Gina and Travis, they're back together. They moved in. Well, they never broke up, but they weren't living together. And they start the season off by telling us all that they bought a house and they moved in together. Yay! That makes me so happy. I really like this couple together. I've always liked Travis for Gina. I think he's exactly what she needs. And I wish them all the happiness. Their house is lovely. And I am really, really proud of Gina. Do you guys remember the first season, Gina's first season? It was rough. It was rough. She had the heavy accent and the interesting hair and the clothes that kind of didn't fit in with the rest of the cast. She was very, very clearly New York, pulled out and dropped in the middle of Orange County. And it was quite apparent for at least the first couple of seasons. We had that one season where everybody was struggling with all of Gina's different hairstyles, including Andy, who mentioned it at the reunion. So to see this polished realtor who is successful is very refreshing. And hey, you guys, it's an endorsement for powerful women who can regroup after having trauma and, things happen to you in your life that set you back. It's not the end. In fact, it could be the beginning of a very beautiful life. So, no surprise here. The Dubrows are selling a house. No kidding. This is the same home that they bought last year that they were going to gut and redo. And Heather stood out on the patio and said, "Oh, I could see Drake's house from here." It's the same house. Apparently it was going to cost way too much and it was going to take way too long. And the more and more they thought about it, the less and less they thought it was the right house for them. And also, I think there's some talk of a real estate related spinoff involving Josh Flagg and Josh Altman. I don't know if that's true, but it looks like that's what they're posturing for. It definitely looks like they're setting us up for that. And A little bit of serious stuff I want to get into because this season there's been some controversy about Emily Simpson's sharing her son Luke's diagnosis of ARFID. So I want to spend a minute or so explaining ARFID. It is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. It's an eating disorder characterized by persistent failure to meet appropriate nutritional or energy needs, and it's not driven by concerns about body weight or shape. Some of the key features are a struggle to consume enough food, a lack of energy, nutritional deficiencies, weight loss or stunted growth in children, and it can be pretty serious if it's left unaddressed. Beyond picky eating, while it resembles picky eating, ARFID is distinct in that it impacts both children and adults, and it doesn't resolve with age if it's not treated. And another crucial distinction from other eating disorders like bulimia or anorexia is that ARFID is not driven by a desire to lose weight or by a preoccupation with one's body image. Some of the potential underlying causes can be rooted in sensory sensitivities, strong reactions to taste or texture or smell, fear of negative consequences, like concerns about choking or vomiting, a lack of interest or appetite, and some of the other conditions that tend to occur with ARFID are anxiety disorders, OCD, autism spectrum disorder, and attention deficit disorder. What is the diagnosis? How is it diagnosed? Well, typically a mental health professional will give a thorough evaluation. And then how is it treated? It is pretty comprehensive. Once diagnosed, the treatment includes cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure therapy, nutritional counseling, and family therapy. So if you or someone you know is struggling with any of these symptoms, or if maybe you have a child and you can't figure out why they're not growing or why they're not eating or why all of the foods bother them, it might be something worth looking into. And something we may have never heard about had Emily not taken the time to tell us about her struggle with her child. So it's something that maybe we should look at from a different lens instead of always looking to villainize these housewives for sharing their life. That's what we tune in for. And then when they share something that we find maybe a little too sensitive or a little too deep, then we attack them. And then when we have someone who's not sharing enough of their life, we attack them as well. So, I mean, guys, let's keep things in perspective and realize that this is a television show and that this is what we tune in for. We don't have to like all of the storylines, but we don't have to jump all over anybody either. And so in this scene where we're learning about the ARFID, Emily says that she just wants her child to be happy. She's taking it very, very hard. And Shane kind of has a different perspective. And that's not to minimize how seriously he's taking it at all. I've met Shane. He is an absolute gem of a human. I really enjoy chatting with him, and I thought he was a really nice cat. I don't think at all for one moment that Shane is taking this lightly. He just is not being as, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but he's just not seeing it as a end all situation. He thinks that it's something that can be treated, and he is happy that they discovered that there is an issue because now that they know what they're dealing with, they can address it. And Emily is coming more from the place of, I don't want my child to be ridiculed. I feel like a terrible mother because I didn't know about this. All of these things are normal feelings. For a mother who has a child that has been diagnosed with something. I speak of this through experience, and maybe one day I'll share that experience with you. But for now, just trust me when I say that parents, they don't want to be judged for how they're taking care of their child. In most cases, most parents are doing the absolute best that they can with what they know. So let's move on to Tamra, because we get to see Tamra in therapy. And I personally found some of the therapist's choice of words kind of concerning. I did not really care for this scene at all. And maybe it was just me, but also I listened to the podcast the morning that Tamra is referring to in the show, where she went to therapy and then went right home and changed clothes and jumped on her podcast. And she was still coping with the emotions of what she had discussed in therapy. And she tells us that there's a lot more that was discussed in addition to the fact that she may or may not have been on the autism spectrum. But she clearly and admittedly says that she misspoke. She said she was diagnosed and she wasn't. And are we going to give this girl a break, or are we going to hold her feet to the fire because she misspoke? I personally like Tamra. I know it's not a popular opinion, but everybody always wants to come after the person who keeps the show going. And how boring would this show be without Tamra? I feel that Tamra has shown us some growth, and I don't think it's performative. That's my opinion. I'm entitled to it. Don't come after me. Just have your own opinion if you don't agree with me. But I can say that I do appreciate that she is acknowledging that she puts up a wall because she's afraid of being hurt, and that's why she doesn't nurture her friendship. Tamra tells the girls that she had lunch with Katie a few days before and caught her in a lie. And it's true. Katie's sitting there at the table. She gets this certain almost deer in the headlights look, which she tries to cover up with fast talk. And she tells Katie, that's Tamra, that she's going to go home and find the text and try, or the DM, and try to figure out what is going on, because it's not what anybody is thinking. And then she never goes home and does that because she's lying. Emily and Gina are on their way to meet Katie, and Emily is distracted. First of all, she does not want to have this meeting. She's pissed at Katie. But more than that, she tells Gina that Luke may have autism. And that, in fact, may be how they discovered it, because of the ARFID, which, as I just said, can accompany autism. So there's a heated confrontation that goes on between Emily and Katie, because Emily is just not having this bringing my kids into it thing. And Emily screams at Katie that she has boundaries and Katie does not. And I'm Team Emily, guys. I think that Katie stepped in it. While Shannon decides she's going to host a Golden Door Spa and Resort event. And I looked it up. The Golden Door Spa and Resort is located in San Marcos, just right here down by me. And I'm seriously considering putting together a little group of ladies to go check it out, because it looks like a lovely place. Well, Tai Go and Tai Chi are the order of the day. But listen, the lunch that they had at the resort looked beautiful. The girls split off into a couple of groups. They do their activities. Everybody talks about this, that, and the next. But then they all sit down to lunch together. And the lunch is a little bit awkward because Emily's still annoyed. But Katie says, nobody really knows me, and I'd like to invite everyone to a hot pot dinner to get to know me. And on that note, I have a question for my audience. Do you have a hot pot place that you can recommend in the Inland Empire, preferably near Temecula, that I can try? Hot pots are right up my alley, and I find myself being today years old and still not having tried it. So send me a recommendation, guys. Thanks. Emily is furious. She just can't get past it. And she starts talking about how Katie, contacted the bloggers because her nanny had confirmed information that Katie had said on the air last season. And so instead of Katie just leaving it alone and letting it die where it landed, no, Katie was accused of allegedly putting this podcaster in touch with the nanny so that the story could go public. And we now know who that is. It is none other than Kiki Monique. I'm going to take a minute to digress here because I have Kiki Monique almost at the tippy top of my, I wish I could get her on my podcast guest list. She is one of my dream co-hosts, and I think that she's a pretty fair human. I mean, she's very, very well connected. I believe her podcast is on the Radio Andy network. She is on Watch What Happens Live quite often. I don't know that she would have acted irresponsibly with information, even had she received it. So I could be wrong, Miss Emily, but I think you may be angry at the wrong person. If anything, Katie is to blame. Leave my girl Kiki out of this. I don't think it's her fault. And I honestly think that podcasters are kind of getting a bad rap. There are some bad seeds out there, but most of us really love and admire the people that we're covering, and we're just trying to do a job. So I'm not sure where all of the negative publicity is coming from, but I think I should just move on to episode 2. Emily, Gina, Tamra, they all go to Shape Shop for a full body lymphatic drainage massage. Now, first of all, this place looks really weird. It's totally Orange County, not something I would do. And that's not, don't come at me. That's not to say that if you're in Orange County, you're weird. It's just what they said on the show. Orange County ladies will pretty much do anything when it comes to self-care. And this is no exception. But these look like torture device chambers. They do not look like something I would want to partake in. And my husband made a funny comment, and he thought they were happy machines for the ladies, if you know what I mean. I thought it was pretty funny. Well, at the Shape Shop, they, of course, discuss the Katie and the blogger drama. But then Shannon meets with Katie, and she's very frank about the fact that she had just come from laser, Botox, and a facial, but not a bikini wax, because why? She doesn't have a man, so she's not going to have a bikini wax until she's dating someone. A little bit too much information, but it's classic Shannon. And then Katie tells Shannon that she struggles from a trauma response when she's confronted with things, and she has a tendency to just shut down, and that she just wishes the girls would get to know her better. Well, Shannon has a conversation with her and tells her, you know, you got to stop with the I'm sorry buts. Therein lies the problem. Your apologies are laced with excuses, and you need to do better. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we continue to cover these episodes, because those words definitely come back to bite Shannon in the butt later. Gina, Tamra, and Emily discuss Katie, who Tamra coins the silent assassin. But Shannon is trying to work with Katie. And the butt thing, Katie's just not likely to change. So Tamra reminds us that last season at the upfronts, Katie was filming Shannon without her knowledge and then showed Alexis the tape. Oh boy, this is not going to be good. They all decide at the Shape Shop place that it shouldn't be Tamra who tells Shannon about it. It's likely going to be Gina, you guys. And speaking of Gina, what do we all think of the latest, social media gossip saying that she has put out there that if Katie Janella comes back for another season, she may not? Okay, do you think, first of all, that she wields a large enough sword that she can make that statement and it will affect anything? And second of all, do you really think that Katie was going to come back anyway? I don't think she is. I went to a filming event about halfway through the season, and Katie was not at that event. And it is my understanding that she really didn't show up to many more of the events for the remainder of the season. So I cannot see how she's coming back for another season. And that would make sense then that Gina would put that out there. But Gina, I would caution you to be careful, because yes, you have become an accepted housewife in the Orange County bubble, and it took a few years, but listen, look at Tamra. Look how quickly she went from being that bitch to fired. It can happen really quickly, so be careful what you wish for. I'm trying to cover Shannon, you guys, but it's cringy. It feels like complete filler. I mean, really? She's picking up Sophie at the airport. She's feeding the dog. She's having a conversation with Sophie about her not being a kissing bandit. And then she plugs the Love Hotel. Well, I'll take this moment to plug the Love Hotel myself because I covered the season of Love Hotel on prior podcasts. I urge you to go back and listen. I liked that show. I hope it'll come back. I'm not sure how I feel about Shannon bringing such a strong Love Hotel presence onto the Orange County Housewives. But again, I guess I don't get a vote. So Emily and Shane are discussing Luke's decline, and they definitely are approaching this thing very differently. The vibes I am getting from these two is first season Shane and Emily, which, by the way, is no bueno. Emily is beyond worried and is upset that Shane does not seem to be as concerned as she is. And Shane is taking offense that Emily feels that way, and just because he thinks that things will be okay and he has a more positive spin on it, he does not agree with her take on how things should be handled. And so these two are bumping heads a little bit. And I think that it may continue a little bit throughout the season because we get confessionals from none other than Shane Simpson. And that's not something that happens very often. So that kind of gives me a little hint that this storyline between these two may continue to become something more throughout the season. Well, Matt and Katie go to have dinner at Jenn and Ryan's house. And my opinion, Katie must be running short on friends because suddenly it's okay to hang out with Ryan and Jenn. Remember last season when Matt hid for hours because he could not be seen on camera with Ryan, given all of the allegations? Last season, she gave the impression that she was trying to fit in wherever she could get in. And she tended to be more of an advocate of anything that, you know, the Tamra and Emily group were kind of going for. In other words, she ganged up against Jenn and Ryan when all the FBI stuff was going on too. And then all of a sudden, she thinks it's okay to hang out with them. Well, to each his own, I guess. But then we have this incredibly awkward scene where Heather shows up to Tamra's house with champagne and onion rings from the Habit. And I don't know what the purpose of this visit was at all, except, I don't know, to make a mess in Tamra's bedroom and piss Eddie off maybe. And then, of course, to discuss the imminent return of Gretchen. Well, Heather says she actually enjoys Gretchen. So this might bring some issues between Heather and Tamra going forward. Who knows? But then Gretchen makes her big comeback. She and Slade show up at Jenn and Ryan's house and join that party. They talk about a menagerie of things, but mostly how Gretchen and Slade never got married and how everybody's ganging up on Katie and how they all hate Tamra. No surprise there. You could have a whole dinner party over that kind of conversation with this group because what else do they have in common, in my opinion? Gretchen's confessional reveals, according to her, that every new housewife reaches out to her on how to handle Tamra. Every new housewife? Do you guys believe that? Do you think it might just be the Orange County housewives? Do you think it was all of the Orange County housewives? Or do you think Gretchen is trying to make herself relevant? I don't know. It's too soon for me to form an opinion on Gretchen one way or the other. I was actually excited she was coming back, but I'm having a little bit of PTSD because I'm starting to remember how Tamra and Gretchen cannot be on screen together without having a fight. And I just don't want this to become New Jersey. It just, that's not what I want. And oh, by the way, word of caution, ladies, look what happened to New Jersey. So tread lightly. Back in Tamra's bedroom, she tells Heather that the issue is that Jenn wanted her life. Do you believe all the things that Tamra said that Jenn did to copy her? Because the wearing her used extensions thing seemed like it was a bridge too far. And that she moved next door to her and went to her doctor and wanted to own a gym and be in a fitness contest. All of these things Tamra uses to claim that Jenn is just trying to have her life. I don't know if I believe that, but it kind of makes me understand it after seeing the photo of Jenn's old look. Now, I don't like that Tamra did this. I feel like she was trying to fat shame Jenn, and the effect, in my opinion, was the complete opposite. Like, kudos to you, Jenn, to have transformed your body in such a way that you now take such pride in your appearance. It makes sense why you are now so obsessed with exercise and bikinis. And instead of fat shaming you, I'm going to applaud you, because that's what I do. I try to lift women up. And in my opinion, she worked really, really hard to get where she is. So even though I'm not the hugest Jenn fan, I'm a woman and I can applaud another woman when I see that it is called for. So there. Tamra goes on to tell us that she doesn't want to relive what happened 12 years ago and that she's hoping things will be different. But Gretchen says she did not get any grace when she and Slade lost people to cancer, because everybody is pointing out that we should give Tamra a little bit of grace given what she is going through with her best friend and podcast co-host, Teddy Mellencamp. And we've talked about it a lot on this show. We know Teddy is going through a stage 4 brain cancer battle, and this was being filmed in the early days of that battle. So it stands to reason that Tamra would be a mess. I would be too. Let's talk hot pot. The girls all show up at the hot pot place, and Emily has this awkward moment where she doesn't really want to sit next to Jenn, but thankfully the other girls file in shortly thereafter. And then things get really tense when Gretchen and Jennifer show up. Luckily, it's one of those go get your own food things, so they were able to kind of get up and dismantle the crazy. And it doesn't take long before Gina gets upset with Shannon for saying that they were bullying Katie. Gina ends up blurting out that Tamra just said that Katie filmed Shannon last year. Dun, dun, dun. Katie's excuse for all of her mistakes is, at the time, I was pissed. I'm kind of tired of hearing that. She says that for everything. And honestly, this is a lot coming from Gina, because Gina's the one who brought Katie on this show. So it kind of shows just how bad Katie is screwing up. Gina tells Katie, "We are not trying to hurt you, so we don't understand why it feels like you're trying to hurt us." Katie swears that she's learned her lesson, and Gina chooses to believe her. Even Emily was nodding kind of in agreement next to Gina, but Shannon graciously exits because she's starting to realize what was said, that she was filmed without her knowledge, and she's starting to get pissed. Well, the hot pot ends with a little glimmer of hope between Tamra and Gretchen that maybe things will be better, because they have this very generic introduction, but it doesn't last long, and we get our first meme. It's not the same thing. Gretchen did look a little bit possessed in that moment. Why was she leaning forward like that? It looked very Voldemort-esque. Well, I guess Gretchen said it best. It's the same old dog and pony show, and there's a bitch involved. I would say a couple, actually. The two did agree to try to have a chat privately at another time, so we'll see where that goes. And Emily is my favorite, but I'm kind of getting tired of her food antics. Really? A raw egg in your Louis Vuitton? First of all, even if I thought the egg was hard boiled, I would still think it was a lame antic. And secondly, I'm starting to be a little bit concerned about Emily's relationship with food, in that she has this incessant need to constantly be using food as a prop on this show. So Emily, I want to keep loving you and I want you to keep being my favorite. Maybe you could take this into consideration. I don't know. That's how the episode ends. And episode 3 begins with taglines. Let's hear them.
Life can be hard, but so are my abs. For once, the only dogs in my life are golden retrievers. I may not be your cup of tea, but I'll bring you an espresso martini. I love life in the hills, so I always take the high road.
I may work in real estate, but that doesn't mean I'm buying what you're selling.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but my truth.
I'm taking a hard look in the mirror, and my reflection is still hot.
So what did you guys think of those? I have my own opinions. In my opinion, Shannon's kind of proves my point that she has no storyline except for her dogs. And Emily's, I like it good enough because, it's always some way, shape, or form around food or alcohol. And we've got her espresso martini situation going on. Katie's, looks like you may have looked in the mirror a little bit. I don't know. Your truth, does that mean you know that you have the truth and your truth? Question mark. I guess we'll find out with the lie detectors. But my favorite was Gina's. I love that she's that bitch. Good for you, Gina. Overall, I guess the taglines were okay. Tamra's was a little, I don't know, self-involved. But I heard on her podcast that that was her least favorite and that they are given like a few of them taglines to read, and they, meaning production, chooses which one to use. Let's talk about Gina and Katie meeting at the luxury hair spa. So you recall that at the Hot Pot, they were going to get together. And so they do. They get together at this pretty intense hair treatment place. And they have a chat. Gina says ultimately she's willing to accept her apology, but it is going to be a while before she trusts her and believes her. And I don't blame you, Gina. So Tamra and Emily, and yet again, another podcast infiltrates the housewives zeitgeist. In this case, it's Tamra's podcast from a couple years back. And I heard this podcast live, and I remember feeling a certain sort of a way about Slade when I did hear it. So let me explain the context. A few years back, Slade and his ex-wife sadly lost their child to a cancer battle, and the wife started a GoFundMe to pay for the final expenses. And Tamra and Teddy went on their podcast, and Tamra spoke about how, let's just say she shouldn't have said what she said about Slade, basically implying that he was a deadbeat dad. And she says now that her reason for using those words was because she was trying to impact the donations and get people to donate more money. Everybody who is a real true friend to Tamra told her that she was out of line and should not have done this. And I think even Tamra feels that way now. So it's fair that Slade and Gretchen are still upset about this. But in my opinion, if you're going to come back onto a show and try to be successful, it doesn't behoove you to carry grudges that are 12 and 2 years old. It just doesn't make any sense if you want to be on the show for any amount of time. Well, the girls do tell Tamra that she was wrong, like I just said. And in a confessional, she gives a very unapologetic sounding apology, to be honest. She's going through it with Teddy right now. I understand. But does she really have to go as far as to call Jenn a dimwit? I think when we reduce ourselves to name calling, it says more about us than it does about the other person. And, I may or may not agree with her assessment of Jenn, but I don't think it's a good look to put it out there. It's not good. It's why she keeps getting herself in trouble. So Jenn, Heather, and Shannon head to the Bungalow restaurant in Newport Beach. And of course, you know, I looked it up and I did my research so I could tell you guys about it. Well, currently they're having a lobster fest, which is pretty cool. I guess you get a free 5-ounce lobster tail with any steak ordered. It looks like it's primarily a steakhouse. They have a filet mignon for $61. That's 8 ounces. Prime ribeye for $75. A prime bone-in ribeye for $85. And then they do have like a lovely looking miso marinated Chilean sea bass for $56. And then they have some dry scallops, pan-seared dry scallops for $57. And so the good news is that all of these entrees come with sides, which is not something we see often at these higher end restaurants. The environment looks really pretty. It looks like they do summer barbecues. It's very crisp and contemporary looking. And they have obviously a full bar with a nice choice of cocktails as well. So this might be one I run out and check out for myself. But anyway, back to Shannon and Jenn and Heather. Shannon tells the girls that Katie sent her a text with an apology, but added a but, which was a big mistake, especially after the conversation that Shannon had with her earlier about how she should stop saying but. So Katie maintains that nobody saw the video except maybe her husband, but then Heather chimes in to say, well, Emily told me about this a few days ago, and I called Alexis. Alexis told me she heard the video when they were at lunch, and she couldn't remember if Jennifer was there. Jenn maintains she wasn't there. I think she's lying. Shannon says she believes Jenn, and Heather says she believes Alexis and doesn't understand how they can even come back from that. Well, Jenn holds her own in the conversation with Heather, and I don't know what is going on, but we have a new and improved Jenn. She maintains that the same could be said about her relationship with Tamra when she is confronted about the fact that she is constantly defending Katie. Jennifer is a different girl this season, you guys, because I don't see her cowering in the corner. She is speaking her mind. Meanwhile, Katie says she shouldn't have overshared. That's her apology, basically. She says Jenn was definitely there because she's never hung out with Alexis alone. So again, in my opinion, she's just trying to deflect from the fact that she totally screwed up. Back at Emily's house, Tamra tells Emily she thinks she's being baited. And Emily agrees with her. So do I, actually. I feel like they have nothing else going on but to try to cause controversy by setting Tamra off, and she's an easy target. But she says she's not going to take Ryan's bait and will just stay away from him altogether, as she has been advised to do so by her attorney. Heather announces that she's having a party. She's throwing herself a birthday party. Now, there was a lot of banter about this party and blah, blah, blah. But honestly, it is kind of funny that this is, beginning of March and her birthday is, I think, early January. But I don't know if Tamra's going to be there, because if Ryan's going, Tamra says she's been advised not to go. Well, listen, Jennifer does not take very kindly to this conversation when Heather's explaining it to her, and goes on a rant about how she had to pay attorney's fees and money she didn't have, and how Heather isn't taking Tamra's side, to the point where she has to apologize to the next table for how loud she got. And then she goes from irate to tears the next second, and tells us during confessionals that you are the company you keep. Well, Heather can't get anywhere in the situation, so she basically decides to invite everyone and just kind of let the cards fall where they may. Katie's upset that the other women don't recognize that she simply tried to survive a bad situation, and she doesn't understand why given the fact that they know what she went through with her divorce, they don't want to lift her up instead of bash her. And my only thought on that would be, Katie, maybe your approach. Maybe it's your approach. We have Emily, Shane, Travis, Gina, and in matching bowling shirts, Adam from the Love Hotel and Shannon all meet up for a night of bowling. Well, Shane shows up in his own bowling shoes, and after they get to bowling, he must be wondering why he's bowling with all of these people who can't bowl, because either production was really trying to make them look bad or they really were bad, but I think I saw one strike in the entire scene. Post-traumatic Jansen disorder. That's what Gina and Emily are calling it. So Gina goes in a little deep with the Q&A and grills Adam a little much. Even Travis steps in to tell Gina to kind of chill. And Shane learned that Shannon and Adam are just getting started for the evening, because this is stop number 1 for these guys. They are headed off to paint the town red all night. At Jen's house, we have an interesting interaction between Ryan and little Dominic, where he does the fun uncle thing. And then we have a more serious interaction between Ryan, Jenn, and Dawson, who's getting ready to head off to Marine boot camp. And Jenn is concerned that Dawson's just doing it to impress his dad. Let's talk a minute about the fact that Dawson co-signed for his 21-year-old brother's student loan with his dad. It's not a great situation. Ryan says he's blown away, and Jenn is flabbergasted that her ex would even ask her son to do something like that. But Dawson seems unbothered, and he just wants to get out of the situation and, in fact, the conversation. So he's out. Meanwhile, Tamra meets Heather at Mozambique. Remember Mozambique? Yeah, we've seen it before. And in fact, it is a popular South African-inspired restaurant and lounge located in Laguna Beach. And we have a 2017 flashback with Tamra arguing with the birds that's pretty hysterical. Some of you think that I think Tamra can walk on water and do no wrong, but I'm going to read her a little. She's always talking about how she doesn't like designer, or she's not into designers. Girlfriend had 2 Prada bags in 2 scenes. She's wearing a Prada sweater or blouse, and she's rocking 3 Cartier love bracelets. So I think that maybe she likes designers a little more than she admits. Tamra and Heather order Veuve in wine glasses. Sounds good to me. Tamra tells us that between Teddy and her going into therapy, she's really struggling. But Heather hears her out and then tells her that she's really proud of her. But just as quickly, Tamra gets upset that Ryan wasn't uninvited from the birthday party for Heather. And she doesn't say it to Heather at the moment, but in confessionals, she does say that she was hurt. And then she tells Heather that Eddie won't come. And Heather says, well, I really want you there, so please bring a +1. And Tamra says she'll think about it. Sounds fishy. Jenn chooses the wrong time to dig in her heels because Ryan is 1 day post knee surgery. And honestly, he probably wouldn't have gone if she wouldn't have protested that hard for him to go. So there he goes, hobbling his way into this venue that we'll talk about in a little while. And he shows up. I was fascinated with the scene where they were showing all of the girls getting glammed up, and the fact that they were letting the glam squad kind of have a conversation. It was almost its own scene. And is this something new that we're doing? I'm kind of here for it, you guys. Welcome to Heather's birthday party, a secondary observance. She tells Terry it's supposed to cost 4 times the new Nobu party that she had, where nobody ate any of the sushi at a $35,000 price tag a few seasons back. But for whatever she's paying, you would expect caviar bumps. And yes, they did say there was a weed bar. Jenn and Ryan made quite an entrance, don't you think? And can we talk about the white hoodie? What is it with this guy showing up at semi-formal events wearing a hoodie with the jacket over it? It's not a good look. It says I'm OC and I'm stuck in the 2000s. I just don't care for Ryan. I don't know why. He just makes my skin crawl. Is that wrong to say? I don't care. Let me tell you, this party is fabulous. What I wouldn't do to be invited to a Heather Dubrow party. Most of the group gets there, and Katie's nervous when she sees Shannon show up with none other than Phil. Yes, another Love Hotel cast-off. She really is still acting like she's in Love Hotel. And then Josh Flagg shows up, which is lending more credence to my prediction of a real estate related spinoff. And Katie says she's not going to avoid Shannon, but Shannon is heard telling Phil Katie needs to just stay away. Listen, at first I really liked the party, and I still do. I like all of the accoutrements, all the beautiful things that they did, but the more and more I look at it, the more ostentatious it looks, and there's a reason for it. They filmed it in an old mega church. You guys know what mega church I'm referring to, and I guess now they're using it for event venues. Whatever, it's a little creepy. The girls are making fun of Shannon showing up with now a third man from the Love Hotel. And Shannon takes how many ice shot glasses to hit the gong? The answer is 4. And Terry Dubrow must be high because he's trying to show the girls the joint that he got in the container from the weed bar, but the container's empty. So he just kind of chuckles. Either it disappeared or he smoked it. I think he smoked it. Everybody's wondering if Tamra will show up. But in the meantime, let's talk about the I broke Slade's penis conversation. Okay, all joking aside, this is a real thing. But we probably didn't need this bit of information, Gretchen. I could have lived my entire life without knowing that Slade Smiley possesses a broken hook-shaped penis. And apparently, Shane didn't need to know this either. Phil and Shannon loaded up on the provisions, but they don't go sit down with the girls. Shannon says, I'm not going to go sit over there, and they sit at a different area. But Katie and Jenn are bent on having a conversation, so they conspire to get Shannon to listen to Katie while Jenn distracts Phil. Of course, things start to get heated, so Emily tells Heather, hey, things are going on over there, but Heather says, I'm not touching that. So we see where the lie detector tests are coming from, and I'm going to call it right now, even though we're not halfway through the season. Katie is the liar, pants on fire. In my opinion, Shannon has every reason to be totally furious. And historically, I'm not a Shan stan, guys. I really have not been all for Shannon, especially given her antics from last season and how easy they went on her. I wasn't happy about that at all. But Shannon puts Katie in the category of John Jensen, and the gloves are off. It's been going on for a while, and everybody is watching like these two are in a fishbowl. Is anybody going to step in and do anything?
Make this clear.
Go ahead.
Katie Janella, I will never, ever speak to you again. You are the most evil person I have ever met.
Okay,
the
Shannon,
fact that
it's
you
all
are
my fault.
she's trying to
All
defend
that-
herself.
No.
It's insanity.
I'll let the ladies handle it.
This girl, worse than Alexis Volino, worse than Tamra Judge.
That's bad.
We're done.
Okay. All right. She left her grilled cheese.
Okay, a few observations. First of all, Shannon, you did let her rile you up. You are highly riled. Secondly, we got the famous hand across the neck, we're done, from Shannon, which means she's done. And thirdly, it was pretty hysterical that the big takeaway from Katie after that was she left her grilled cheese. Episode 4 shows us that Shannon did storm away from Katie but did not leave the party, and I'm glad she didn't leave. She ends up talking with Emily and that little group that was standing around, and Emily agrees with Shannon and says, Shannon, this is not gray. It is very, very black and white, and Katie is completely wrong. Katie grabs Matt to leave because she's really hurt. But guess what? Tamra's coming, and she brought a +1. None other than Joe De La Rosa. If you know, you know. Joe De La Rosa was on season 1 with Slade Smiley, who is now Gretchen's life partner of almost 2 decades. So it was a little shady that Tamra decides to bring her. And the girls are on their way, and it's apropos that they say a little prayer because my guess is all hell's gonna break loose. So they head over to the mega church, the venue for Heather's party. And I think that the proverbial crap is about to hit the fan. Listen, the production company knows exactly what they're doing because Tamra and Joe arrive right as Katie and Matt are leaving. So of course there's going to be a confrontation, but to think that it was Matt who is going to be the one with all the cojones, he tells Tamra all of this is her fault for bringing it up to Shannon to begin with. And so the conversation goes on and things start to unravel, and Joe kind of coerces Tamra to give up and walk away, and that's what happens. Heather greets Joe like with a big old hug and all this excitement, and it makes me realize how shady Heather was being to not mention it at all to any of the girls that, yeah, she's coming and she's bringing a +1, who you know, her name's Joe. Yeah, she didn't do that. Can we talk a little bit about the look on Gretchen and Slade's face? Oh my gosh, this was indeed a shock. And Emily and Gina hysterically grabbed the popcorn, and Jennifer's really upset with Tamra bringing Joe to begin with. Despite Gina's innocent act, she starts talking some major shit about Gretchen's physical appearance. And Emily says she looks like she dipped herself in formaldehyde every night, looking like Barbie, the filter from 2003. I guess we don't have to guess how you really feel about Gretchen. And I told you guys that Terry Dubrow was high. He's funny, but his filter sure is gone when he's high. Heather says, "Are you stoned?" And he says, "Well, what did you expect? There's a weed bar." But high Terry Dubrow wants everybody to mend fences. And Gretchen says, absolutely not, especially since she showed up, she being Tamra, with my husband's ex. It is uncertain whether Heather also took part in the ganja, but she sure does get mushy when she tries to explain Tamra's side to the girls. And Heather's not wrong. Everybody's so upset they can't seem to see the forest through the trees. I agree with Heather. If they were to just get out of their way, they might be able to solve this one. Do you believe that Tamra has gone through a life-changing event and fundamentally forever has been changed? I think she has. I listen to her podcast every day, and I hear, well, not every day, whenever she podcasts, but I hear a different Tamra, and it seems to be sticking. I could be wrong, but that's how I feel. Now, Jennifer approached Tamra and proposes a private conversation in the future, and Tamra agrees, even though we know she doesn't really want to have the conversation. Well, I kind of love Heather's speech. It's 53 days past her birthday, and she realizes how ridiculous she is. But she seems to want an opportunity to celebrate herself with her friends, and I don't see anything wrong with that. As an update, the total price came in at $80,000, and I see a lot wrong with that. But can you still invite me to your parties, Heather? Shannon drops it like it's hot, and Gina says she drops it like it's lukewarm. I love it when the girls actually have legitimate fun and you see them really letting loose. Well, Travis and Gina report killing it in the real estate business their first year, selling about $10 million and launching their own company. And it looks like Jenn and Ryan are going back for more veneers. Of course, we have a whole scene surrounding that, but I'm going to spare you the details and move on to the fact that we finally know what the official Orange County MILF checklist consists of. Are you ready? Boobs, tummy tuck, spray tan, handbag, G-Wagon, and veneers. Wow. That is a lot of upkeep and a lot of maintenance, and I don't know that I will ever fit in with OC. Also, this is per Jenn, so we got to keep it in perspective. And here we are again. It seems like we have another official member of the cast. Social media has onboarded and might as well be holding an orange of their own because it has really become a distraction in this show from its regular path, and I don't know that I like it. Word gets back to Jenn that Tamra said she is trying to emulate her, and Jenn does not take it well. Enter Josh Altman and Josh Flagg from $1 Million Listing. Heather and Terry are having them work together to sell the house, which is kind of a big deal because these two famously had a falling out some years ago. But I think Heather's right. I think they're back because it's a big commission. Why wouldn't they bury the hatchet to make the money? Tamra and Sophia have this great conversation. She tells us that they are almost codependent upon one another. And Tamra thinks that's why Sophia doesn't want to leave the nest. But Tamra, she's 19 years old, my love, and it's a big, scary world out there. I know, as someone who was married at 19, I get where you're coming from, but we're just living in such different times. So in my opinion, if Sophia could stay home until she has a foundation underneath her and is able to springboard out in a better place, then it's worth it. We hear about Tamra's therapy, and even Sydney comes up. Thou protest too much? Sometimes I wonder. I don't want to completely let her off the hook because when I see bullshit, I'm going to call bullshit. And this therapy session seemed a little off to me. I don't know what it was about it. Aerial yoga, yay or nay, you guys? Well, Shannon, Emily, and Gretchen meet, and they do that. Yes, they do. And is this production that is forcing things? I mean, to be fair, both Shannon and Gretchen are anti-Tamra right now, so that makes sense. And I guess Emily is riding the fence. But I don't know. This scene was it looked forced to me. Katie, Heather, and Gina go to breakfast, and Heather confronts Katie about meeting up with Kiki Monique. And Katie said, yeah, I met her at that party in LA, and I think she's funny. But Tamra told Heather that Katie was trying to get Kiki to release some pretty bad stuff. Katie denies it outright. And Gina doesn't think Katie should even be talking to these people. Well, thanks, Gina. Now we're these people. Katie's not looking good in this moment. And then we cut to these family montages, which I really love. I would love to see a lot more of this. It's just, innocent stuff like Emily and Luke walking the dog Cindy, and Bandon and Katie and the dog Mochi all kind of interacting, and then Gretchen and Slade. You guys, I think this is really cute. Keep that part of it coming, Bravo. Well, Matt and Katie have a scene, and Matt wants to have her back, but I don't know, he's kind of a rookie house husband. This guy needs to be schooled because I don't understand why he is getting so involved. Tamra and Jenn get together to talk, and Tamra admits that she was an asshole because Ryan called Eddie some names, and it made Tamra mad. But Jennifer keeps wanting to point out that the allegations caused problems with her and that her children were affected, and it resulted in legal fees that she couldn't afford. But Tamra points out that she could do whatever she wants, but as soon as somebody does something back to her, then they're the bad one. Well, this is going nowhere good, you guys. And before you know it, they're calling each other out about cheating allegations. And Tamra says, you don't want me to bring it up. Cut away to the confessional where we hear from Tamra that there are some allegations that Jenn may have gotten involved with another guy at a yoga studio. And it turns out the hair extension story that Tamra was spreading is true. We heard it from Jenn, and it was Jenn who told Tamra. Well, within a few seconds, Jenn is activated and on 10 plus again. I'm pretty sure she got media trained or something. Tamra does something out of character, which is gets up and leaves. Maybe we have some growth, Tammy Sue. Looks like things will be heating up next week as the preview shows the crew heading to New Orleans, and we know that that is the episode where Tamra quit the show, and I think it'll be juicy. So let's see what's in store for us next week at the Big Easy. Well, darn you guys, we ran out of time, so I cannot cover 90 Day Fiancé Hunt for Love episode 10 in this episode, but I'll take care of it. I promise I will. We will also be back with the Valley and more Miami. And don't forget, we have our summer series and all of our special guests coming up. So there's a lot coming. I'm really excited to share it all with you. I've enjoyed chatting with you today. I'll be here living on the verge. Until next time,